Dhan Singh Thapa was born on 28th April 1928 in Simla, Himachal Pradesh, India. He had been commissioned into the 8th Gurkha Rifles on 28th August 1949. Bravery and fearlessness were in his blood. Even before he joined 1962 Indo-China War, Major Thapa had earned a huge name and respect for his bravery. On several occasions, he had engaged in Nagaland insurgency, where Naga militants had posed a serious threat to national security. Major Thapa had killed several hardcore Nagaland insurgents, and his name had created intense fear among the Naga insurgents. On most occasions, in the close contact encounter, Major Thapa would charge his enemy with his notorious Gurkha knife called Khukri. He was extremely ruthless against the insurgents, as he would show no mercy for them. At one time, when Major Thapa's wife had intense labor pain, he was on the mission team to take an armed action against insurgents in Makochung area in Nagaland. Major Thapa was granted special medical leave to visit his wife until the safe delivery. But he opted not. For him, duty and national security stood first. He knew his wife was in the safe hands of his family members and went to accomplish the mission. His armed mission was successful, as all the insurgents had been shot dead. Such was the passion Major Thapa had for his duty and responsibility. A fierce war with China had already begun on 21st October 1962. Chinese army was moving towards Pangong Lake. Their main intention was to capture Sirijap and Yula. To stop Chinese advancement towards Sirijap, the 8th Gurkha Rifles, commanded by Major Thapa, had taken positions. During Indo-China War, Indian Army was very much a traditional army. Indian soldiers were still using outdated .303 rifles, and they did not have a special winter suit to fight on icy mountains. Whereas Chinese soldiers were well equipped, as they had automatic guns and they were well prepared for the war. Literally speaking, .303 had no match against much more sophisticated automatic guns which Chinese soldiers use against Indian soldiers. The entire area of Sirijap had extremely unfriendly geography, and on top, the weather was too cold to hold rifles in hands for a long time. Despite all odds, the soldiers of the 8th Gurkha Rifles were patiently waiting for the Chinese soldiers. When Chinese soldiers invaded, they came in large numbers, equipped with latest weapons. The brave Gurkhas of the 8th Gurkha Rifles, undeterred by the numbers and sophisticated weaponries, continued firing at the advancing Chinese soldiers. Chinese army was well aware of the defensive strength of India. They did also know about possible weapons India could use against them. After collecting necessary military inputs, they were certain about capturing Sirijap and Yula in less than 1 hour or so. But to their utter dismay, even after hours of intense gun battle, Chinese army could not push back the Gurkhas. The brave Gurkhas successfully stopped the advancing Chinese soldiers. Major Thapa was moving from trenches to trenches and encouraged his boys to give a tough fight to Chinese. In one of the trenches, Major Thapa saw a young Gurkha soldier who had received a gunshot in his left shoulder, looked shocked and confused. Major Thapa looked at the young Gurkha soldiers and said, "We are Gurkhas. Gurkhas fight for their honor and reputation." Major Thapa then took his rifle and killed at least 5 Chinese soldiers who were approaching towards their post. The young Gurkha soldier was inspired by the bravery of his senior officer. He picked up a rifle of the fallen soldier and began firing at Chinese soldiers more intensely than before. When Major Thapa saw the young Gurkha soldier was fighting confidently, he moved on to the next trench. The first wave of Chinese attack had been successfully foiled. The Chinese army was completely taken aback by the rock-like defense of Gurkha soldiers. The Chinese soldiers brought more soldiers and made second daring attack on Gurkha soldiers. Chinese intention was loud and clear. At any cost, they wanted to capture Srijap and Yula. In a second attack, more Chinese soldiers were brought to the front and opened fire with their machine guns, mortars and bazookas towards the Gurkha soldiers. Major Thapa stood strong and asked his soldiers to give a tough fight to Chinese. In the meantime, when Major Thapa reached to a trench, there lay a machine gun beside the fallen body of a Gurkha soldier. Major Thapa put the helmet on the chest of the dead soldier as a mark of honor, took his machine gun and began firing at the Chinese soldiers. Major Thapa was continuously mobilizing his soldiers by placing them in different locations so that no part of the area was left open and weak. When Chinese army realized that their casualty rate was regularly mounting high, they decided to use tanks to support their soldiers to break Gurkha defense. Shelling from tanks proved fatal as those bombs destroyed several Indian bunkers and fighting posts. Chinese did also use incendiary bombs that caused the Gurkha soldiers to abandon their bunkers. A huge number of Chinese soldiers surrounded the area and cornered the Gurkha soldiers. The Gurkha soldiers were regularly falling down and at last only a few Gurkha soldiers were left to fight. Major Thapa and his soldiers could fight longer, but their ammunition ran out. When there was not a single bullet to fire, Major Thapa ordered his men to draw their blades against the enemy. In the meantime, a bullet hit the thigh of Major Thapa and he was on the ground. Chinese officer asked Major Thapa to drop kukri and surrender, but Major Thapa refused. He tried to stand up and wanted to fight with his kukri, but a Chinese soldier hit in the face of Major Thapa and he was unconscious. Major Thapa and a few Gurkha soldiers were taken by the Chinese army as prisoners of war. Chinese officers regularly forced Major Thapa to make announcement of surrender on radio, but he refused to do so. Upon this, Chinese officers made him walk on snow with bare feet. Chinese officers continued torturing Major Thapa, but they could not break him. Finally, he was put into the prison where he was regularly tortured. The government of India acknowledged the bravery of Major Dhan Singh Thapa and he was posthumously awarded the Param Vir Chakra. Only after the war was over was it known actually Major Thapa was alive and he was in Chinese captivity. Upon Major Thapa's release, he disclosed that he had received extreme pressure from the Chinese army officers to declare the surrender of his men in the battle. He was also asked to speak on radio and declare how India was the aggressor in the battle. After being awarded the Param Vir Chakra, Major Thapa was promoted to the post of Lieutenant Colonel. He served the army in the same capacity until his retirement. For a time being after the retirement, he served in Sahara Airlines as its director. Later, he shifted his family from Simla to Lucknow. In order to honor Major Dhan Singh Thapa, the Shipping Corporation of India named a cargo vessel on his name. Long live Major Dhan Singh Thapa. We are proud of you. Dear viewers, if you like this biography of Dhan Singh Thapa, then you can subscribe to this channel for more videos of this kind. Thank you very much for watching this video.